Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I'm Tony Gerdeman here, as always, with Tom. Tom, how's it going?
Tony, we're doing so many of these shows that I feel like we need to mix things up a little bit. So we end the show every time telling people to hit the thumbs up, to leave us a comment, to leave us a 5-star rating and review on your podcast platform of choice. We're just going to do that up front. Go ahead and take a second to hit the thumbs up on YouTube, leave us a 5-star rating on your podcast platform of choice. And then now, Tony, on with the show.
But what you've done, Tom, is now I won't know how to end the show, and there's going to be awkward silences
You
followed
just
by
tell me
awkward
how you're
speaking.
doing. You just tell me how you're doing and then end with an awkward pause at the end. To end with a power pause at the very end. It'll be fine.
I'm doing fine. Thank you for asking. Yes, we are here. It is another transfer portal show as Ohio State starting right guard for the past 2 years, Tegra Tshabola, is hitting the transfer portal. And on one hand, I've got a list of almost 24 players that I've been, keeping an eye on as terms of transferring out. He was not on the list, but thinking about it, he should have been because Ohio State has been trying to essentially move beyond him for 2 seasons now. And so at this point, he's probably like, you know what? I'll help you out. We'll all just move on from each other. Got 1 year of eligibility remaining. I'm going to go play somewhere that isn't trying to move me out, and I can find a job and stick with it and show everybody what I can do.
Well, I think there's 2 pieces of this. One is the fact that there's no more post-spring portal window. So if you're not sure, if you're going into your last season and you're not sure that you're going to have a starting job or what your status on the team is, or not that he was going to get booted from the team, but not whether he was going to be certainly the starting right guard next year. There are a lot of pieces, and there's a lot of different ways they could maybe configure that offensive line just with the guys who are currently on the roster. You add Ian Moore as a tackle and you move Philip Daniels in as a guard, and boom, that's a whole different offensive line. And that's before you look at adding anyone in the portal. So, you're going into the spring not 100% sure of your status, and then with this being your last year as of eligibility, that's a lot of risk to assume. And going into the portal, you look at someone like Zen Michalski, for example, who left Ohio State last year and left, did not have a job, lost, they sort of slid him in as an injury replacement, didn't work, ends up going to Indiana. And he wasn't a starter for Indiana, but he was the sixth lineman for Indiana, probably got a decent amount in NIL, and then was up on the stage at the Big Ten championship game, celebrating with his team, and won the Rose Bowl and is now in the college football playoff semifinals. And, that was someone who was not guaranteed anything at Ohio State this year. And so you go somewhere where you maybe feel like you have a better opportunity and where you're probably going to get a more generous NIL offer because they're trying to lure you while you're on the open market. So, I think a lot of that stuff all factors in here. And that's just, this is just sort of the realities of modern college football before you even get to the ins and outs of the positional battles.
Yeah, there's no guarantee that he was going to be starting at right guard next year for the Buckeyes. They've got options, whether, as you said, sliding Philip Daniels in there. Josh Padilla played pretty well there in the Cotton Bowl. Mm-hmm. He's a factor. They don't want to lose him, so finding a place for him would be beneficial. It's a tough gig nowadays where you need more than 5 offensive linemen, but the 6th guy is like, well, I could be starting somewhere and making a bunch more money, and so you have to essentially pay that 6th or 7th guy as a starter. One, there's a pretty good chance you're going to need them, as Ohio State has seen the last 2 years. 2, if you don't have that guy and you have to go too far down the depth chart, it may cost you a game, as Ohio State arguably saw against Miami. So basically, you need to pay, 8 starters, but only 5 can play, and you've got to figure out a way to keep the other 3 happy, and you can't. And I guess the only way to do that, like any employee, just give them more money, I guess. but they all still want to play. So, they've tried the last 2 years with the rotation. The rotation apparently has chased one guy away. I don't know if it's enough to keep two others, but now if you were going to lose one player, I think everybody would agree, okay, right guard is fine because they have options. But now those options they're in play now, and that it's like this would be what you work out in spring. It's like, well, then there's still the portal aspect. Like, I don't know that there's not going to be more people moving on that would be in the mix for this, because deals could be offered. Zen Michalski left for more money than Ohio State was going to give him. I'm pretty confident that Tegra Tshabola is going to find more money out there than Ohio State was going to be giving somebody that they didn't know if they were going to be a starter next year. They certainly knew Zen Michalski wasn't going to be a starter this year. Indiana didn't know that. They threw out some money and grabbed him. But losing Tegra Tshabola, it's a lot of experience. But as long as everybody stays, they should be fine.
They should be fine. But there's a lot of that's a big caveat. There's as long as everyone stays, that's doing some real heavy lifting. Like, I hope that is lifting with its knees and not its back, because that is a lot of heavy lifting there. Austin Seerveld could choose to go to the NFL. I mean, that's a possibility. If Austin Seerveld goes to the NFL, boy, that shuffles some guys around. Then all of a sudden you can't take Ian Moore and put him at right tackle, or put him at left tackle and Seerveld the right tackle, or whatever, and move Daniels inside. So then that eliminates one real possible scenario there. So you still have Padilla, you still have Luke Montgomery, you still have Gabe Van Sickle. Assuming all those guys stay, then you've got three guys for a couple of guard positions. You have an extra guy you can rotate through. But if you keep the guys that we're talking about right now, that's seven guys who they, I think, feel decent about. And, Gabe Van Sickle coming in as a redshirt freshman, I think everyone walked out of the Big Ten championship game and saw once he went in, they played so much better, and went, well, it's solved forever. And it was like, well, not necessarily forever, but he's a redshirt freshman this year. So guess what? He's going to be substantially better, presumably next year. That's sort of what happens with redshirt freshman offensive linemen. If you're playing your second year as an offensive lineman, you're really a year ahead of schedule. So, I think that with the current guys, the current seven guys that we're talking about right there, and, we'll see, can Carter Lowe take a step forward? Can some of these other guys take a step forward? Maybe, we'll see. But with the seven guys we're talking about here, they probably are feeling like they're in decent shape. Could they add someone in the portal? Yeah, sure, they could. I will be very interested to see if they're bringing in some, I have not seen like a real hot shot tackle prospect going in the portal, but, if someone is in there, do they bring them in? I mean, that would be interesting to see. Do they go after a guard? Do they go out, is there someone else out there? Or are they happy with those seven? Because I think with those seven, that's a pretty solid foundation for an offensive line for 2026. And then you sort of, you're going to mix and match, and you're going to see how those pieces fit together. What do we always say? They're looking for the best five. There's lots of potential ways they could sort of mix those things, mix those guys around and come up with different combinations to make that best five happen.
So Tegra Tshabola, the 13th now recruited scholarship player to enter the portal for the Buckeyes, the first full-time starter. And I think that's a key note there. We'll see if any more join him, but this was, again, for me, a little bit of a surprise, but after thinking about it, shouldn't have been, given the stresses put on his playing time throughout his career. So there you go. Tegra Tshabola to the portal. If you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and hit that thumbs up. We'd appreciate it. Of course, you can always find us at BuckeyeHuddle.com, where we are talking about this and everything else and more at the Buckeye Huddle message board presented by Jeff Ruby's Columbus. So find us there as well. We'd love to see you there. Thank you all for tuning in, and we will talk to you all later.